So I've told this story many times through the years, not in print form for my different papers, but there's a big connection between Campbellton, New Brunswick, and the Undertaker. Yes, there is. When the Undertaker made his debut in the WWF, which it was at the time WWE, of course, is the new moniker. No Class Bobby Bass, a big Atlantic Grand Prix wrestling star, friend to wrestling fans throughout the Maritimes, brought a pay-per-view version of Survivor Series 1990 into the Paramount Theatre in Campbellton. Now, they were bringing various pay-per-view shows there, including Buster Douglas Holyfield. I happened to be covering it that night for the Dalhousie News. Now, it was a big crowd. So how Survivor Series works, there was a number of WWF heels and superstars would face off against each other, and you would advance to the final round. Now, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, was promising a certain person to be his tag team partner against a group of wrestlers, including Coco Beware, the Hart Foundation, and Dusty Rhodes. Now, when he introduced The Undertaker using his Degrassi style, everyone in the crowd in the Paramount was saying, oh, well, it's probably some former WCW or some former, WWF coming back. When Mark Calloway, who was a wrestler for a few years before he came into WWF, showed up, he was dressed as the original version of The Undertaker. And to say he was impressive would be an understatement. He was being led to the ring by the infamous heel, voice piece or manager, Brother Love. And we knew something was going on, but when he came into the ring, the fans in my crowd basically said as a person, this is going to be interesting. And sure enough, The Undertaker dominated a few of his opponents, eliminated them, and was eventually counted out. But those who were in the crowd knew that the WWF was going to be the main pro wrestling federation from now on, leaving NWA, WCW in the wind. It was the growth of the 1990s era of wrestling very soon. Like the 1990s in wrestling was big throughout New Brunswick. WWF came to Campbellton for a card for the new Civic Center a few years later with Bret Hart as the headliner. But something happened. That night was the coronation of Vince McMahon as the king of wrestling in New Brunswick. Obviously, Atlantic Grand Prix wrestling was important, but we all went to there saying that Campbellton, how Campbellton goes in relation to wrestling, goes the world. When Grand Prix wrestling was at its height, Campbellton and Battersea, Northern New Brunswick, determined the popularity. Now, I was there to see it that night. I can still remember people in the crowd, not say laughing, but saying, kind of half-heartedly, the end is near, he's the devil. One guy said he's the devil. Now, we know The Undertaker's gone on to great success through the years. He retired Sunday night, officially or unofficially, after 30 years in the WWF. He had a big send-off with a lot of his former competitors and various supporters and non-supporters, kayfabe-wise. And I must say, for me, the last 30 years of wrestling, I have covered it in every shape or form. But it all comes down to The Undertaker. And he helped get Ric Flair over. He helped get Macho Man Randy Savage over more. Helped get Jake the Snake Roberts over more. The overall 1990s boom of wrestling is all linked to that one night. And you got to understand, like, Dusty Rhodes was big in wrestling in the 80s with the Four Horsemen. No matter what WCW, NWA would do after that, the original NWA, not the watered-down version now, The Undertaker is the link. He was bigger than Hogan for a while, too. And you're saying he's bigger than Hogan. Well, Hogan was an American, what they call celebratory. Undertaker was worldwide. Because the gothic aspect of him, the horror aspect of him, and he looked friggin' intimidating, and he was very intimidating. Like they call the monster style. Anyway, I'm very fortunate to say that I'm talking to you today 30 years after seeing the original Undertaker appearance, and it's just as important to me that it is back then. And I'm 55 now. I was a 25-year-old young journalist at the time, still struggling to find focus in my coverage, and I decided that night if there was going to be an entertainment or sports career for me, I had to get over like the Undertaker. And if you ever read my old columns in the Tribune, Dalhousie News, Bugle, talking about wrestling, I wasn't doing that, if anything, but to celebrate the importance how wrestling in Canada, especially New Brunswick, joined us up. Because everybody had soap operas for the women, but wrestling turned to the soap opera for men, the true soap opera, with The Undertaker. And the screw job in 97, ECW, the rise and fall in Rob Van Dam, the rise of The Rock, Mick Foley, Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, now Roman Reigns, the new spin. No matter what happened, whether you like Vince McMahon or not, Vince McMahon is Satan. But the problem is, my old buddy used to say, Satan's good for one thing, it's always warm in hell, which is true. Northern Brunswick is cold as hell sometimes, Anyway, so to all my wrestling fans on my feed for YouTube, Rain Ravens, Todd Forgrave, Von Taggart, all the wrestling fans in my family and friends, this is for you. Long live The Undertaker, long live kayfabe, and long live the feeling of being at a pay-per-view in a movie theater in Campbellton, New Brunswick in 1990s and just bonding, because you can never ever take it away. And like WWE says, forever. Have a good day.